This is the video lesson for geometry, section 3.1, lines and angles. So in this lesson, we're going to identify relationships between figures in space and then identify angles formed by two lines and a transversal. So here's some key concepts in this section. First, we're going to define parallel lines. And so I think we're all are familiar with parallel lines, right? Lines that do not intersect. But now that we're kind of in 3D, parallel lines are also on the same plane. So far in math, we've always just dealt with parallel lines that are on a piece of paper. And so they're on the same plane, right? That piece of paper is the same plane. So two lines that are parallel don't intersect, but they're also on the same plane. Skew lines also don't intersect, but they're not parallel. And so you can have two lines that are not parallel, that don't intersect if they're skew and they're in 3D, right? So like this line here, AD, like imagine that in space, right, on this piece of paper. And then imagine this line, FB, somewhere away from that, that's shooting up and down, right? This is going left to right and this is going up and down, but they're in two separate spaces in 3D that they're not going to intersect, right? But they're not parallel because they're not going the same way. So these kind of lines are called skew. Okay, and then parallel planes are planes that don't intersect, right? So 2D. So think of like the bottom. So if you had a cube, the bottom of the cube and the top of the cube, those just went on forever. Those are planes that do not intersect. They're going to be parallel planes. Okay, so this is what this note here is saying, that not all lines and not all planes intersect. And then another note that segments and rays can also be parallel or skew, right? They're just lines that stop. A segment stops on either end and then a ray stops at just one end. Okay, so using that vocabulary, let's look at this problem. So here we have a picture. It's basically just a rectangular prism, but think of it kind of like a fishbowl. It's an easy way to picture it in real life in 3D. Which segments are parallel to AB? So let's highlight AB here so we can see, right? And remember, parallel has to be in the same plane. So if we look on this plane, this is a line that's parallel, right? This blue and this yellow one are not going to intersect. And then if we look on this plane, the top plane here, this line DC is not going to intersect with AB. And then also there's another one, which you can't really see. But if we had, if you sliced through what are we calling this? A fish tank. From this line to this line, it's actually on this plane that's slicing through. So, oops, that's not a highlighter. If you can picture this plane that slices through these two, they actually are on the same plane, this line and that line. And so this line is also parallel to AB. So we have DC, EF, and HG, or any other version of naming those. And then the next question is asking is which segments are skewed to CD? So then, right, so all these are parallel because they share a plane. But if you look here, right, this line here, this is on the same plane and it crosses this. So they are not parallel because they're coplanar, but they intersect. But what about this FG? See this here? It's a good color for this, maybe red. This line here, oops, that's not a highlighter either. Right, this is going to go on forever this way, and this one's going to go forever this way up. Doesn't actually intersect here because this is above, right? If you think about the fish tank, it's up here, and then this is the bottom of the fish tank down here. If they went on forever, they would never touch. They're not parallel. So let's say FG is skew. Also EG is skew. DH and CG are also skew. Right, they're just never gonna touch this line, and they're not parallel to that line. Okay, I'm making a mess of this picture. Sorry. Okay, which are two pairs of parallel planes? Remember, there's actually more than two here, but if you think about and this is a fish tank, the front of the fish tank and the back of the fish tank would never touch, and they're planes. So remember, with a plane, you can name it just with 3 letters. So I'll name the front plane ADE. Just taking these 3 points. You don't have to use any more than 3. And then this back plane we'll call BFG, the big friendly giant. And that's one pair. And then another pair, right? You can do the bottom and the top. So let's do, so this is the front and the back. And how about the bottom and the top? There's also the left side and the right side, but this only asked for 2. So I'll just show 2. And then the top, let's just pick DCB. And then the bottom, let's call EFG. Okay, and then there's also the left side and the right side, but they only asked for 2. Okay, and then D, which are 2 segments parallel to the plane BCGF? Let's see if I can, I can erase this because, hold on. Okay, there we go. Let's clear this out now. Okay, so which are 2 segments parallel to plane BCGF? Okay, after all that I said, you only need 3 to name this one. Then the book names it in 4. But it could have just said BCG and we would know that it's this plane here. Okay, so this back plane here, which are 2 segments that are parallel to the plane? So you can have 2 segments that are, you can have segments that are parallel to the plane if they're going along the same way and then never intersect. So here we can see AD is going to go on and never touch that plane. So we would say AD. And then EH also, and it only asks for 2, but also AE goes parallel, and DH. These don't, right, because this intersects here, this one doesn't, it intersects here. Okay, and then these lines are actually on that plane, right? So, okay, hopefully that kind of helps you visualize what this all means. Okay, and so then there is one for you to try. So I'll leave this up here and you can look on your notes and try, or maybe I'll leave them both up there. Try this one on your own. All right, so press pause and then come back for the solutions. Okay, so let's go over these. Which segments are parallel to AD? So AD is here, this red line here. So parallel would be BC and FG and EH. These 3 are all going the same way and they don't touch. And then why are FE and CD not skew? These 2 here, right? They actually are coplanar. Remember that if you can imagine this green plane slicing through this aquarium at this top right line and then this bottom left line. You could imagine a piece of paper that could go through, or like a thin metal tray or something. And then what is another pair of parallel planes? So remember up here we had said front and back and top and bottom, and then I also said there was left and right. So if you do left and right, I called them ABF, this one, and then right I called HCG. And then this last question says, what are 2 segments parallel to plane DCGH? So I highlighted that plane here. What are 2 segments that are parallel? And I just picked AB and FE. You could have also picked AE and FB. Yeah. Okay, moving on now to some very exciting stuff that we'll be using a bunch in geometry is angles that are formed when you have a line, which is called a transversal. And a transversal is defined as a line that intersects 2 or more coplanar lines at distinct points. So if you have a transversal that intersects 2 different lines, it creates these 8 angles. So when a line intersects 2 or more lines, the angles formed at the intersecting points create special angle pairs. So they're going to be related in different ways, and they're all going to have vocabulary words, and we're going to learn about them now. So here, without further ado, I guess in the picture too, there's also, right, because there's a line, and then there's one line that intersects both, and then there are, in most cases, I know this is two or more, but for right now, for our purposes, we're just going to be doing 2, and we're going to be focusing on just these 8 angles. So in between these 2 lines that don't intersect at the line, right? This line intersects twice in this spot. In between them is called the interior, and then outside of them is called the exterior, and that's going to help with the naming of the special pairs. So let's look at this. The first one is defined as alternate interior angles. And so the word interior means those angles are going to be in between the 2 lines that cross through the transversal. And then alternate means they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So in this case, 3 and 5, and then 4 and 6. Same side interior angles, I bet you could guess what that means. And that is they're still on the inside, but they're going to be on the same side as the transversal. So in this case, 3 and 6, or 4 and 5. Corresponding angles are going to be they're basically on the same side of the transversal, but they're in corresponding positions. So like 1 and 5, see, they're both top left. 2 and 6 are both top right. 3 and 7 are both bottom right. And then 4 and 8 are both bottom left. So corresponding positions, but they're always on the same side as the transversal. They're just, you don't see the word same side. And then alternate exterior angles, hopefully you can guess what that means. Now, this is the exterior outside of the two lines, and then alternate means opposite side. So 1 and 7 and 2 and 8. And maybe you can see that we're missing same side exterior angles. That's also a thing. That would be like 1 and 8 and 2 and 7. Okay, but they don't get to that right now. Problem 2 says, which is a pair of alternate interior angles? So when you approach this kind of problem, right, you think, okay, you see the word interior. Let's now draw the interior. Look for your transversal. Identify the transversal. That's going to be this line that crosses both. So this is my transversal. And then the other two lines recognized are going to be these two. And then in between them is the interior, and then outside of them is going to be the exterior. Okay, so here we only want interior, and then alternate means alternate sides of the transversal. So 2 and 6, oh, yeah, there it is. The other one is 7 and 3, but that's not listed here. So this is our answer in our multiple choice. Okay. And then this next question is asking you on your own to answer the following question. What are 4 pairs of corresponding angles? So if you could press pause and see if you can name the 4 pairs of corresponding angles in this picture here, and then check back for the solution. Okay, hopefully you got that. You can see top left 1 and 3, top right 2 and 4, bottom left 8 and 6, bottom right 7 and 5. Those are your 4 pairs of corresponding angles. Okay, moving on to problem 3, the last thing we're going to do with these. It's asking, are angles 2 and 4 alternate interior angles, same side interior angles, corresponding angles, or alternate exterior angles? It appears I've already answered this question. I must not have gotten that off the notes, but right, 2 and 4, pretend you don't see that that's the answer. Let's identify our transversal. Oops. You're basically looking which line, okay, touch the two where they're intersecting. Which line is touching both of those red lines? This one. So that's my transversal. So the other 2 lines are my 2 lines. So I call them the 2 lines. And so if you go in between them, that's your interior. Okay, so we know for 2 and 4 are both in the interior. So we know it's not alternate interior angles, and we know the corresponding angles are on the same side. So it's either same side interior or alternate interior, and if we look, 2 and 4, they are on opposite sides of the transversal, so it must be alternate interior angles. Okay, and then the next question is asking for you to press pause and guess what 1 and 3 are. And so press pause, take a minute, see if you can figure out which one that is, and then check back for your solution. And hopefully you got that they are corresponding angles. So here, when you're one clue when you're looking, especially when you're identifying the interior, if you see right 1 and 3, 1 is interior, 1 is exterior. So it can't be anything that has the word exterior or interior in it, right? Because they're not both exterior and not both interior, which is going to be your clue that they're corresponding. Okay, if it was 1 and 4, that's actually not an angle pair. So that doesn't always mean that. But if it's 1 and 3, right, you can see, oh, they're on the same side of the transversal. They're in, one's exterior, one's interior, and they're on the corresponding sides, right? Corresponding spots. This is top left of this red dot, and this is top left of this red dot. This is corresponding. Okay, time for practice. Enjoy.